So today, Group 1 for YieldMax, which was the previous weekly payers, announced their distributions today. So we're going to go over those along with the RoundHill and Defiance announcement sheets that I have. But then I hope you stick around to the end because I am going to compare MSTY versus MSTW. We're going to take a look at which one is more profitable, which one is holding their price the best, which one is paying out more distributions, and then I'll be providing my take on which one, in my opinion, is the better of the two. So stick around and find out, does MSTW beat MSTY? Hello my friends, this is Legend. So today we're going to take a look at the announcements for Group 1. And you can see here on the chart, these are the ETFs in Group 1. And tomorrow will be Group 2 announcements. I've also got a few to announce for RoundHill and Defiance. And then we'll finish it up, as I had mentioned at the very beginning of this video, as we're going to compare MSTY versus MSTW for the price and that percent difference between the two. So we've got a lot to go through, and let's just go ahead and jump right on in. And I'm going to go ahead and start right off here with the YieldMax ETFs, and this is for Group 1, October the 28th. They will go X tomorrow on October 29th, and the pay date will be October 30th. That's a Thursday. And these were the previous weekly payers, okay? If you've been in the YieldMax for a little while, Group 1 is now the previous weekly pairs. And they've just shifted it back one day. So let's just go ahead and find out what we're going to get paid out. Okay, so we're starting right here off with Chippy. And Chippy's going to pay out 46 cents. And that's a 40% distribution rate. Feet with 34 cents at a 56% distribution rate. Not too bad on either one of those. Fivey with 24 cents. GPTY with 32 cents. Levgy with 58 cents. And that's an 83% distribution rate. A very nice payout on Levgy. QDTY 27 cents. RDTY with 33 cents. SDTY with 22 cents, SLTY, which is the ultra short, and that's the inverse of Ulti, and it's paying out 61 cents at an 85% distribution rate. A very nice distribution for Salty. And looks like Ulti has dropped down to 8 cents, but the price of Ulti has also came down. So even at 8 cents, that's still an 86% distribution rate. Now, if Ulti is able to move back up in price, then I'm suspecting that 8 cents will move back to 9 cents. But because it is down, that distribution rate has dropped down to 8 cents. And that's why I keep saying we don't necessarily want these ETFs to drop too much in price, because it does affect that payout amount. And it's not just YieldMax. It is Defiance, it's RoundHill, it's any of these high yield ETFs, right? If that price of that ETF per share drops, then you can expect that distribution rate to drop as well. So because it has come down, that distribution rate did go down a little bit, right? And the flip side of it, because it has gone down, SLTY has gone up, right? It's 61 cents. Nobody wants it to go down, but it is what it is. Next week will be a new week. We've got YMAG with 13 cents and YMax with 19 cents. There we go. All right, at an 80% distribution rate. Happy about that for YMax. I have YMax and Ulti. And for both of those, my real price per share is under the current price per share, and therefore I am green. And these distributions only help me to lower that price. So super excited, always happy to earn those distributions. So that wraps it up for YieldMax. Let's go ahead and check out RoundHill. And here we are on RoundHill, and you can see that WPay has an X date of 10/28, and it pays out tomorrow, 10/29. Okay, so WPay will be paying out 62 cents. And for the crypto plays here, you can see the X date being 10/29, which is tomorrow, and 10/30 being the pay date. So for YBTC, it's going to be 29 cents, and YETH is 27 cents. And let's check out the announcement sheet that I have for Defiance as well. All right, so here we are on the one for Defiance, and you can see that the distribution payable date is 10/30, and the X date being 10/29, which is tomorrow. So this will go X tomorrow, Wednesday, and pay out Thursday. Now note that these are leveraged, okay? And we'll start right here with AMDU for 43 cents, ETHI 29 cents, HIMY 40 cents, HOOI 47 cents, MST for 10 cents, PLT for 27 cents, SMCC for 54 cents, and QLDY for 19 cents. So that wraps up all the announcement distribution sheets that I have. So let's just go ahead and let's talk a little bit about MSTY and MSTY. So both of them use Mr. or MSTR as the underlying. MSTY being YieldMax ETF and MSTW being the one from RoundHill. Now MSTW is a leveraged ETF. It is a 1.2% leveraged, okay? Versus MSTY is not leveraged. Now, I am using the start date of 7/24 right here. And that is when MSTW came out. Because here on the chart, you can see right there is the first candle. And that date is down here of 7/24. So what I did is I pulled that opening price on that day, and then I also included all the distributions that has paid out since it opened, okay? And I did the same thing for MSTY. The only difference is MSTY has been out for a bit longer than MSTW, right? As you can see, MSTY came out on February 22nd of 2024. So it's definitely been out much longer than MSTW. But to try to keep it roughly the same viewing area, I just used that same date from MSTW, right? I used that 7/24, and on MSTY, I went over here to 7/24 right there, and I just took that opening price and I added all those distributions from that point on. Okay, so just to kind of give you an idea of how I laid this sheet out right here. So as you can see, that first opening price is $50.40 for MSTW, and MSTY is at $21.25 opening price. Now, how much in distributions is that in total from that same start date? For MSTW, $8.35, and MSTY, $4.08, okay? So you can already see that MSTW definitely paid out a whole lot more than MSTY, a little over double the amount, right? But one thing to also note, okay? One thing to note is the MSTY price is more than half the price of MSTW. So dollar for dollar, you would be able to own more shares of MSTY than you would be able to buy into MSTW. Like I said, about twice as many, right? A little over twice, right? And to kind of show what I mean here, say you're going to dump 10K into each one of them, okay? So for 10K into MSTW, you would be able to get a total number of shares of 198 shares. Okay, and some odd shares, right? All I'm doing is taking that 10,000 divided by the price to give me how many shares I could actually acquire at that price using $10,000. Now, for MSTY, if I did the same thing, I would be able to buy 470 shares. Okay, so very interesting, right? Like I said, a little over double the amount of shares you can buy with MSTY, and it's just simply because of the price. And as I stated earlier in the video, and I've stated many times, that price of the stock affects that amount that you're going to get in the distribution. Because 10% of 50 is $5, but 10% of 20 is $2. Even though both of them are at 10%, MSTW is going to pay you $5 versus MSTY will pay you $2. Okay? Just wanted to explain a little bit on that percentage. All right, so you can see I've added these column headers right down here for the number of shares for MSTW and the number of shares for MSTY. And then we'll go in at the end here and we'll calculate how much that is for each one. But continuing along the top up here, I'm showing here the price needed, right? And this is basically the opening price here. This is basically the starting price of each at this date minus the distributions for each. What is that dollar amount? Okay, so basically anything under 4205 for MSTW is going to be at a loss, right? And anything for MSTY under 17 is going to be at a loss. So now what's the current price? And the current price for MSTW is $24.55 and MSTY is $11.63. So what is that price difference? That is a loss of $17.50 for MSTW and a loss of $5.54 in MSTY. And this is taking into account those distributions, right? And this is all off of just a single one-time purchase on this date here. And you've earned these distributions, right? So this is a moment in time of a single purchase. So what is that percent of gains or loss of each? And there you go. So MSTW is at a 41% loss and MSTY is at a 32% loss. Okay, so you can see that just off of a single purchase at the very beginning when MSTW started and at that same date the opening price for MSTY, both are showing as a loss if you only made that one single purchase. That percentage of a loss here is going to be the same no matter if you bought one share or you bought 10,000 shares. That percent loss will be the same if you only made that one single purchase. But to compare, say we're going to use $10,000 here and we're going to use that for each one of these, okay, just for comparison. And you can see we've already gathered a number of shares for MSTW of 198 shares and MSTY at 470 shares. How much would we have earned total for this entire period? And that's just a simple equation right here. It's just the number of shares times the amount of distributions, right? And this is the total amount of distributions over that period of time. So that total for MSTW that you have earned that entire time would be $1,656.75. Now, how about MSTY? Did it earn as much? Or is it less than MSTW? Because as you can see, MSTW paid out a whole lot more in distributions than MSTY. Paid out over $8, whereas MSTY was just a little over $4. So let's just see, what did MSTY pay out over that entire period? And again, we'll use that same formula, and we're just going to take the number of shares, and we're going to take that times the distribution, and that total is $1,920. Interesting, right? Even though MSTW paid out more in the distribution, MSTY still came out on top. You still earned more in MSTY. And if we want to calculate the current price minus the opening price, okay, just to get at how far down the price alone is it, then we can do that equation right here, and we can just say that the 24.55 minus that opening price gives us a loss of a little over $25 in the price itself. And how about MSTY? The same equation, except using the current price for MSTY minus the opening price of MSTY, and that gives us a loss of $9.62. Okay, so not only did we make more in MSTY in the distributions, but we also lost less in MSTY than we did in MSTW. Now again, this is just a single one-time purchase of $10,000 worth of each one, okay, to generate those number of shares. And then to get the amount that you would earn, I've got per week here, but that is not correct. That would be the total earned, right? So let me change that. So this is going to be the total amount earned. There we go. Sorry about that. That's the total amount earned. And that is the number of shares times the total distributions that you've earned, which would be a total amount earned on MSTW of that 1,600 versus MSTY, you're earning 1,900. So you not only made more in distributions with MSTY, but you also took a smaller hit in the price depreciation of MSTY, because MSTW dropped $25 per share since July the 24th of 2025, and MSTY has only dropped $9.62. So for those out there who were asking me which I prefer, MSTW or MSTY, and I wasn't really sure, right? Because I hadn't really sat down and looked and just did some quick figures on it. But you can see right here that using that same date at that same start time, MSTY is the winner, right? Looks like to me, from what I'm seeing, MSTY outperforms MSTW from its beginning start date of MSTW. So I hope this kind of helps you out if you're kind of looking. Now, of course, this is using this snapshot in time, but since MSTW has not been out that long, it came out in July 24th of 2025. That is the date that I used, and I used that same date for MSTY to try to have a good comparison between the two. I was not sure how it was actually going to work out because, as you saw, I was actually creating this bottom table here as we went. So I thought that was very informative even for me. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up right there. If you like this kind of content, make sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And as always, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before you get into any stock plays. And until next time, Legend out.